Welcome to our last general body meeting of this semester. We will have some more next semester, so you won't be missing us too much. But we're going to do some quick introductions, and then we'll have pizza, our guest speaker, and we will do project updates at the end. So who are we? We are the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics at the University of Central Florida. We're one of the largest chapters of AIAA in the nation. We focus on projects for you all, making sure you guys can get your hands on different things for industry experience before you graduate here. We also do professional networking and different things like that as well. This is your e-board this year. If you don't know me already, I am Amelia Soriaga. I'm your president. Austin is your vice president. Ethan is your secretary. Val is your treasurer. And Connor is your project chair. And our faculty advisors are Dr. Kaufman and Dr. Parati. Neither of them are here tonight, but they are both fantastic MAE professors here, and they do a lot for us behind the scenes. So we just want to recognize them.
Up next are our committees, and we actually have 3 of them. First is the media committee, which these people are responsible for taking pictures of all of our events, posting them on social media, editing, graphic design. So like you see of our flyers, that's made by us, people in-house. Next up, we also have events. People are responsible for holding all of our internal and external fundraisers, as well as any of our outside events that we do, like bowling or anything like that we've had this year. Also sponsorships, which are basically responsible for funding all of our projects, which allow everything to be cheaper for you guys. That's why it's only $30 and not, let's say 50, because some of these projects do cost a lot of money. And with that, these are all like just rundowns of it. But if you guys are still interested in joining, we are accepting for this year and also next semester. So please apply. This is a great way to get involved in the club without being a full-on project officer.
All right, and we do have one upcoming event for you guys. It is going to be our professional development event. It is next Thursday in the same room at 7:30. We're going to have an industry panel for you guys to ask questions to. If you scan that QR code, that's going to take you to a form where you can submit questions in advance if you want to do that. And yeah, there will be resume reviews as well after, and some professional headshots taken by our media committee. So definitely come out to that if you want some feedback on your resume or just advice on how to get into industry. But that was our very quick introduction. We're going to do pizza, and then we will have our guest speaker. To the stage.
Thank you. Just a second. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Recording is going? We're live? Awesome. All right, as Amelia mentioned, my name is Rhett Jeffries. I know some of you probably see me in senior design class, and I think you've all heard now that there's no more presentations this semester. We're all done, so we can relax about that. Don't worry, we'll do it again next semester. So I thought what I'd do is I would just share, this is the first time I've ever done this kind of thing with my entire career, but I'm hoping you'll just feel free to ask questions whenever. You don't have to wait till the end. I'll be, well, I'm looking at my kind of highlights of my career and some perspectives or some maybe words of wisdom that I've kind of gotten over the years that you might find helpful. But you know, it was really interesting doing this, putting this together for me. So I went way back, I found some old presentations I did and pulled some pictures from them. Anyway, hopefully it'll be interesting for you. I'm excited because my family can probably watch this also, since it's being recorded. And I think many of my kids probably don't remember some of the early stuff, at least, that I'll talk about. So it'll be really interesting. The other thing I want to make sure I mention is in all of my slides, I try to show you where I attribute where I get the pictures, because some of these pictures aren't mine, but I'm showing them. So hopefully when this goes public on the recording, they can see it at least, that it's on there. So this first slide, I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder. That is the engineering center. That's where I went. One of the things that was kind of cool when I first got there as an undergrad was that these walls, the stone, they stick out, and you have people that like to rock climb. They're just climbing all along the bottom of the engineering building, just, practicing chalk marks, all that. It's kind of cool. So there's a lot of course, rock climbing there in Colorado, but my wife and I are both from Colorado. That's where we met at the university. And then from that, I'm going to kind of cover from then, when I started my career after I graduated from undergrad and master's program in Boulder to where we are now here in Orlando. So this is what I'll cover. A little bit about my background, some of the pearls of wisdom that I've kind of gathered over the years, that something that I learned going through. I'll share those keys of success. Of course, this is just from my opinion. I'll hit some highlights kind of following through what I show you in my career success, and then I will talk at the end about the DoD SMART scholarship. Some of you may already know about this, but just in case, it's an opportunity, because I'm aware of it, that you might find handy later if you want to go even from undergrad, as well as paying for undergrad or graduate school. Okay, so first, this is a bit about me. This is last Christmas. My kids and their spouses, partners were with us. This is at my son's house in Utah, and it's a great time. We really enjoy getting together. Most of us are Broncos fans because we're from Colorado. I'll talk a bit about my career in the Air Force. My favorite flavor of ice cream is Rocky Road. But if that's not available, anything with nuts and chocolate, that's good too. So you might wonder why I show ice cream, right? It's something that I've always loved. I don't eat as much of it now, obviously, because it affects me differently than it did then. But I always love a good Rocky Road. I can take, Dreyer's ice cream. I can eat it all in one sitting, probably. I shouldn't, but I could. Oftentimes throughout my career when I was teaching, I would ask students what their favorite flavor of ice cream is. It's a way to kind of break the ice and get to know them. And when I was at Penn State, I would, I asked them at the beginning of the semester, kind of tally down, because there's a really great creamery at Penn State. And I would kind of take note of who had the most common flavors. And then the very last class, I brought ice cream for us to share. Now, it was in a cooler and it didn't really melt very much, but it was good. So you're thinking we might do the same now? Okay, because I don't know what you like, but we'll see. Anyway, the other thing about the pictures of these planes, these are ones that I actually took and at air shows. I love going to air shows. I love aviation. I did, in fact, get my private pilot's license way back when I first started my career. And then we started having kids, and it was very expensive and couldn't afford it anymore. But it's something I've loved, I've enjoyed doing. I hope one day to get back to it when we can afford it. But something that has been a part of my life. My dad, he was in the Air Force. He took me to my first air show when I was just a kid. And so I've been around planes a lot. In fact, we pretty much lived around an airport even now. So we hear planes all the time. So it's something that's been part of my heritage, if you will. Okay, so here I'm going to just talk about what I see as some keys for success. This is something I learned. I was actually taught some of this when I first started. When I was in your shoes, I was like, what am I going to do? I knew I was in Air Force ROTC, so I knew that I would be going into the Air Force. I had a guaranteed job, right? I didn't know exactly what I would be doing. And so I was of a mind that I was going to pretty much apply for the job I wanted. And you could sometimes do that in the Air Force back then. So I was able to get a year called educational delay so I could get my master's right away after a year. And then I asked to be at the Air Force Research Lab. It wasn't called that then. It was the Flight Dynamics Lab. but I applied to be there. I wanted to do wind tunnel testing. That's what I really wanted, right? Anyway, so one of the things that I learned as I started my career, first of all, what I'm sharing with you is my journey. Each of you has your own path to go through. Each of you have your own careers. It's going to be unique to you based on where you are, what your passion is, what you like, opportunities that come your way, life situations that may change. It all affects all of us at some point in our lives. And so the key thing here I want to emphasize first is that I'm showing you what I did. I didn't know at the time I would be doing all this. I just took one step at a time, just like what you're going to be doing or are doing right now, right? So it was something that I just didn't know what to expect, but as I look back, these were great opportunities, and I'm going to share with you what those were. And so the reason why I say take ownership, it's really going to be up to you and what you decide you want to do, and as the opportunities come your way. So I'll answer questions as it comes along if you think about it. Okay, one of the things I was taught right at the beginning that the Air Force teaches you to do if you want to have success in your Air Force career, and I think this is true not just in the Air Force, but across the board, was the first, say, 10 to 15 years, get technical depth. Get really good at whatever you want to do technically, so you have that to rely on, to hone your skills, your technical skills, if that's what you want to do. And then after that point, broaden and go find some other things that might be helpful, interesting, a little different. Maybe that's moving into management and doing something like that. That's all good and to help you. And so that's kind of, in general, what you would do. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this thing right here called volunteer. This is true across the board, no matter where you are. Doesn't matter what career you're in. You will have opportunities to volunteer for many different kinds of things. What I show on the right side of the screen are AIAA opportunities, right from their website. You can go and you can see wherever you are and whatever you're interested in. These are committees that you can get involved in. As a young professional, you can be. They have a program. They call them associate. You can be associate up until you're 35 years old and be on a technical committee, which is a great opportunity to interact with some major leaders in the field who've done a lot of research and well-known. You can interact with them shoulder to shoulder and help putting on these technical conferences. So I did that as when I was going through in my career. But there's also in your job, if you find an opportunity to volunteer, if the way to look for it is if you see something, they're asking for your bosses or somebody's asking for volunteers and people are hesitant to volunteer, that is the exact time to volunteer. So here's why. For example, they need people to help plan the annual awards ceremony that they might have, right? They need some help with that. Well, it's not a glorious thing to do, but you will be interacting with senior leaders in your organization routinely, and you'll have an opportunity to get to know them. They will get to know you, and you'll have a chance maybe even to get outside of where you usually work to meet other people in other organizations, find a better understanding of what's out there in your own organization, a different division, for example. And then when there's opportunities that come along that will help your career or something you might find out about that you might be interested in, you can go ahead because you have that network and that connection with volunteering might open up some doors for you at that time. So I would encourage you to look for those opportunities. In or out of work, doesn't matter. Volunteer somehow, do STEM, whatever it might be. It's a way to give back and you interact and get to know people that way. And it makes it more enjoyable, I think. So as I go through my presentation, I'm going to talk through, kind of put it in this frame of my technical depth versus broadening on all of my jobs, my career. Hopefully that will help you see where I went. Okay, so very first thing, when I got out of left Boulder on my way from my first duty assignment at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, I wanted really to get involved in the wind tunnel. Well, back then there was some problems with money, not a lot of money for wind tunnel testing. We had some great wind tunnel facilities there at AFRL, Air Force Research Lab. But I didn't always have that opportunity to do it. It just took a while sometimes. But there is something that I had a chance to do, and that was to manage what's called the Small Business Innovation Research Program. These SBIR programs are where small companies can put in ideas, and I was able to create a topic where these small companies could put their proposals in. We would evaluate them, and we have money set aside to give for that research. And one of them was this involved here with this T-38. Does this have a pointer on it? Is that what that is? Okay, I'll just point here. This is the T-38 in the wind tunnel, and that's in flight test. So this company from Southern California that's composed of some former test pilots in the Air Force and some smart people, they, at that time, the T-38, and still is actually, is used in pilot training. This is something from the 50s and 60s. That plane was designed back then. It's supersonic, and so all the pilots that were going in to fly the F-16s, F-15s back then, they went through and flew this trainer, this T-38. And they wanted to lower the landing speed of the T-38 to do it without much cost, and that if you could do that, it would be more like the landing speed of an F-16, F-15, right? Because it could go slower. The problem with the T-38 is it's meant to go fast, and so the wings are very thin, and you couldn't do much. So they came up with this idea of putting the strake, a little shape here, aerodynamic shape, on the engine inlet. And they tested it in the wind tunnel, and it looked like it was going to be successful, that they could go to a higher angle of attack. They could go to an angle of attack. It would energize the flow over the wing. It would reduce the buffeting and allow you to land slower. That was the plan. So we gave them a phase 2, and we could actually modify a T-38 and flight test it. So we did that. And you can kind of see it right here zoomed in, that orange strake these aren't bands. This is where they remove the rivets so they can attach it on the inside. And they flew it. It was a test pilot school project, student project. That was the coolest thing ever as a second first lieutenant back in the Air Force, working with the best test pilots. They're out there going through test pilot school. Chuck Yeager always came. I saw him at the hallway, walked right past him. When he was alive, he was handing out scarves to all the students that graduated from test pilot school. So it was a big deal, right? That was pretty exciting for me. And that was really something that helped set the stage. I was managing that program, but I had the ability to put in topics, and it became something I did throughout my career in the Air Force, to put out these topics and get something out of it. When I left the research lab in Dayton, I went and got my PhD at Lehigh University. The Air Force paid for me to do it. And what I was looking at was in the water tunnel, oscillating a flat plate that was tapered, looking at the interactions of a vortex that would impinge on the blade. Now, the reason why I did that was because I was interested in the wind energy field and wind turbines. Now, besides wind turbines that had an issue with a vortex shedding off the support column, for example, or upstream with other wind turbines that are generating vortices, I wanted to understand the interactions when it hit because it caused noise. Helicopters also have this situation. So it was really an ideal problem to study, and it was something that I was very interested in. So at that time, particle image velocimetry was just new, just coming out. And the professor at Lehigh University, Don Rockwell, who became my advisor, was using that concept, that experimental technique to get these images. And so these are basically, take a picture, see the water with these particles, the laser illuminates them, I take a picture. I actually developed the film, we scanned it, and these are velocity contours of the vortex that come in as a time lapse and impinging on that leading edge. So it was really interesting, and it was something that I learned a lot for, and I ended up with my PhD, and from there went to another Air Force research lab directorate, this time in munitions. And so this was down here at Eglin, Florida, just on a panhandle. And I was in this team looking at a new next generation air superiority missile that had a lot of agility, would be able to make turns instead of the aircraft. So we're looking at, this is the rocket motor, solid motor that would come in the AMRAAM, for example, and trying it out if you could vent from that motor, pour out a jet or a stream of for thrust, be able to make that turn, as you can kind of see with this concept. Also looked at the aerodynamics on the forebody of that kind of a missile shape. We looked at all kinds of flow control that would be used. This is an example of a synthetic jet or other things that would change the flow. And so you can see this has symmetric shedding out of a high angle of attack in a wind tunnel that shows the laser sheet. This is what it usually is, and it's asymmetric. So it would have what we call phantom yaw. It would turn at high angle attack. And so this was a way to try to control that. Very interesting thing, and I held a workshop, a high angle attack missile workshop, invited all the best researchers and experts from around the nation to that workshop. It was really fun. So that was kind of getting my feet wet in technical depth. And then I had a chance to go teach at the Air Force Academy. This is a picture of the quad there at the Academy, and I worked at the Aeronautics Department. Great experience. There for 3 years, I was helping manage the wind tunnel facilities, well, I should say all the experimental facilities in the aeronautics lab there across the street. I had a chance to fly gliders, so interesting, I was teaching Introduction to Aeronautics, and all the cadets at the Air Force Academy have to take that course and thermodynamics, no matter what degree they were taking, no matter if it was an English major or history major. Everybody gets a BS degree when they come out of the Air Force Academy because they have to take these science classes. So one of my students, who was also an aero major, he was in my class. I was teaching him aeronautics, but he was also an instructor pilot for the glider. So I had a chance. He taught me how to fly a glider, and I was able to solo in one of these gliders at the Air Force Academy. That was really fun. That was exciting. In fact, while I was in that program, 9/11 happened. So it was kind of an interesting situation. I was in the air in a motor glider when that happened. So it was an experience I'll never forget. On the right side, you can see this T-38 painted black. So the F-117 pilots that operated out of Holloman Air Force Base down in New Mexico, they wouldn't always have a chance to fly the F-117, so they used the T-38s as a training to help them stay proficient. And they flew up to Colorado Springs, and several of us instructors for aeronautics at the Academy had a chance to sit in the back seat and fly in a T-38. So I was one of them. And that was a really thrilling experience, something I'll never forget. It was awesome. And that was something we taught the cadets all about the T-38 performance. I had a chance to actually sit in there. It was an amazing experience going around about Mach 0.96 roughly. Big arc over Cheyenne Mountain, over Colorado Springs. It just felt so quiet. It was really cool. So that's an experience I won't forget either. I had that little AIAA symbol there to represent that during this time, I was on the technical committee as an associate member on the Fluid Dynamics Committee, helping set up meetings for several conferences in the early 2000s. Then it was time for career broadening. And in the Air Force, you had to go take an assignment at the headquarters. And the headquarters for many of the offices was in the Pentagon. So there's a picture of the Pentagon. And I was in the International Affairs office. And I wanted to go use my Spanish ability and work with the Latin American Air Forces. So I had a chance to do that. We would talk with them about how we might help them, with having opportunities to interact with them, sending people for training to the U.S. from their air forces so we can interact with them. They would learn English. We would work with them on that. During that time, there's a drug war going on in Colombia. Colombia was getting a lot of assistance from us. We were providing aircraft to them. And so I had a chance to interact with Central and the northern part of South America, working with them. It was pretty cool. And then I also had a chance, because of the international affairs, to go to Saudi Arabia, and I was responsible for all the foreign military sales interactions between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. They purchase a lot of our stuff, and so I was their liaison. So it was a really good cultural experience as well. And then I had a chance to work at the Air Force Office of Scientific Research as a program manager for the Unsteady and Rotating Flows program. I have a picture here of a bat in a wind tunnel. One of the projects that I funded was a multidisciplinary university research initiative that Brown University led, which was trying to understand the flow characteristics of a bat. And so they actually had a bat, put it in a wind tunnel, put these markers, and had high-speed video and tracking of these bats in the wind tunnel. So it was pretty cool. And it was a multi-university, so there were several universities involved. That was one of the more fun and kind of different projects that we funded. All right, then it was time, got out of the Air Force, and it was time to go do something else. I wanted to stay in the DC area where we were. I wanted to get back to research and development. After being over in Saudi, it was, I was out of the research field and I wanted to get back in it. The FAA has an Office of Environment and Energy, and they were just starting off this program called the Continuous Lower Energy Emissions and Noise Program, CLEAN for short. And it was a partnership with industry where the government, FAA, would give money up to half of the cost to demonstrate, mature and demonstrate technologies for commercial aviation up to a TRL, technology readiness level of, say, a 6 or 7. So typically it's like an engine test or a flight test. And so these are the 5 companies that we first contracted with. The very first time, this started off in 2009, I was hired to run that program. And it was pretty unique. It was something that had never been done before, and it became very successful. One of the highlights of my career. You can see some of the technologies. The whole idea was to kind of incentivize these companies to produce, to develop and commercialize technologies sooner rather than waiting until later. And the idea was that it would be a 5-year program, and within 10 years from the end of that program, they would have on some kind of like an airplane or an engine, the technologies that they demonstrated so it could be commercialized and enter into service. So you may have seen some of these already. This is Pratt & Whitney. Anybody fly Breeze Airways out of Orlando? We do. It's a small airline. They use A220s, Airbus A220s. But this engine is what's on that aircraft. The very engine that NASA and the FAA helped develop is actually on that aircraft. I like flying that because of that reason, actually. And it is more quiet. The idea is you could have a quieter, more efficient, high bypass ratio geared or turbofan that's geared so that you can have the optimum speed on the fan different from what it would be on the core. And so that was a new way of doing it. And they've been very successful. There were others. This is that GE TAPS 2 low NOx combustor. That actually is flying on their LEAP 1B engine, which is flown in many aircraft now on the new 737s and the other Airbus, I think 320. So that's something that's out there too now. And there's been studies looking at what has been the impact of the first round of clean, and it has actually saved many, hundreds of thousands of pounds of carbon and probably saved at least 1.5% of fuel burn over the years that it's been out there. So that's maybe not a lot, but it's significant when it comes to all the miles that the airlines put out there. So it's kind of cool for me to see that happen. Boeing did these in conjunction with Rolls-Royce, did these tests This is a ceramic matrix composite nozzle. So it's lightweight, it's high temperature, and helps with the sound, mitigating the sound. They demonstrated that on the 787. And there, it's hard to see maybe, but they did an adaptive trailing edge, just a small little, like 2% cord flap on the aircraft that could optimize the profile on the wing to reduce drag overall over any segment of the flight that you're going on in cruise or if you're whatever segment you want to optimize what that drag profile would be on the wing. That was a way to do that. So pretty interesting. So I was there at the FAA for about 4 years, almost 4 years. At that time, situations in our family changed. I got tired of commuting an hour and a half each way into downtown DC. So we moved to State College. I got a job at Penn State working at the Applied Research Lab. And on the far right there, you can see the water tunnel that was built by the Navy and housed in that building since the late 1940s, 1949. Just passed 75th anniversary last year. But we did all kinds, still being used all the time. We did a lot of scaled model testing and in the past, many decades, over the decades, you can think of propellers, Navy propellers on torpedoes or submarines, or tested their scaled versions and other kinds of tests in that facility. It's really kind of a unique facility. And it can be run at a reasonable cost in the university. So we use it all the time. You can see a picture of a laser Doppler velocimeter here, taking data through the window inside the water tunnel to get velocities in the water. You can see pictures here of some of the cavitation from the propeller on the blades in the water tunnel. Lots of interesting things going on during that time. I was also there teaching. I taught capstone engineering class there and fluid mechanics, and principles of turbo machinery was another class I taught. So it was really good for me also kind of get back to my technical roots, even though it was considered broadening. All right, then it came time when I was at Penn State, I had the opportunity to go work with the Office of Naval Research Global. So the boxed locations are where I had a chance to work. And these are all the locations that Office of Naval Research Global has. Office of Naval Research headquarters is in DC. And it's tied very closely to the Naval Research Lab. And the Global International Arm has been in existence since World War II, even really before ONR got started in 1946. And the whole point was to send people, experts from the Navy, to London during World War II to help understand what the needs for the British were as allies, that we could share resources. Both countries, us and the British, were developing radar technology, and we coordinated together. And we also wanted to understand what the state of the art of German technology was as well. So that office really started back then and became our international headquarters soon after that, since the beginning of ONR when it started. So when I was there in Santiago, first as a science director, and then later moved to London for the headquarters as a technical director. So I'll just share a few pictures. This is while we were in Chile, and this is a picture of the embassy in front of the embassy, I should say, downtown Santiago. Beautiful place, beautiful weather. Excuse me. Our office was actually in the embassy, U.S. Embassy, as one of the tenant organizations, and we would interact with State Department employees and other agencies that were there in Santiago, in Chile. It was a great opportunity. We had our sister services, the Army and the Air Force, were also there, and so we had similar missions. Our mission for ONR Global was to find really cool research that was being done, not just in Chile, but throughout Latin America. And we would visit professors, talk to students, see what research they were doing, and then we would fund them, give them grants. We would fund them to do that research and publish their results, and then connect them and their research back to our Navy in the US. It was really a great opportunity. We had a lot of interaction, especially with the Chileans. Now, I'm showing some pictures on the right side. During every year, no matter what embassy you're in, there's always a celebration for our Independence Day. Now, in Chile, the 4th of July is in the middle of winter. So, it's the Southern Hemisphere. So it was kind of chilly, but we had it was focused on science and technology. And so we had a prominent place there. We had Navy officers and other senior leaders from the Chilean armed forces come. We had our own ambassador and deputy chief of mission there who would interact. So this is the chief of the Navy at the time, the head of the Navy there, and this is the head of the Chilean Navy Research and Development Organization. We worked a lot with him. And then these are professors that we funded in some of the Santiago universities there. That's an example lower right of one of the machines that was built by one of those professors. So we had a chance to demonstrate that and interact with them. It was a great opportunity. Great opportunity to do some hiking and exploring down in South America as well. So it was fun. After that, we left in early 2020 and moved to London. I got the job as a technical director. Then I was part of as a civilian in the Navy, working at headquarters in London. This is a picture from 2022. Here I am here in the middle as a technical director, and this is all of the people around the world in our organization that we're working with. While I was there, of course, we had a chance to travel and interact with researchers. One of the things that I started when I was there as technical director, what was called, and still is called, the Global X Challenge. See that little logo on the far right? And we would put out these topics and ask international researchers to team together in a multidisciplinary approach and come up with ways to solve problems. And one of the ones we did that I'm showing here in the lower right was using muons. Well, the idea was to have some way of, if you could not have a GPS signal, was there another way to navigate under the ice, for example, under the water, that you could know where you are without GPS, right? And if you're at high latitudes in the Arctic Circle, GPS doesn't work anyway. So this group of researchers led by a team from the UK, Japan, Finland, there's a US member on that team, and I'm missing someone. It might have been Denmark, maybe? I can't remember. I feel bad now, but, or maybe, yeah. They were a team that came up with this idea of using muons. The muons are produced when cosmic radiation hits the atmosphere. It energizes these particles. They go the speed of light, and they will go many miles into the water through ice, through rock. Doesn't matter. You can detect them. And so they were able to show inside the Arctic Circle, under ice, they put the detector, and we're there showing that up in the upper part of Finland, near where the Finland, Norway, and Sweden intersect up there. It was really fun to be there and see that demonstration. They could also demonstrate for the Army that they could navigate inside caves using muons. So it's really a cool technology that they were able to do from that project. Another project I didn't put on that was from Global X, I didn't show here, was a project to eliminate biofouling on the hulls of ships. Sometimes you see barnacles all the time on ships, right? Well, that slows them down, causes drag. It's an issue. You have to, strip them off and repaint. And so we said, hey, is there a way you can do that using biology? And so there's a group, again, the US, Denmark, UK, and Spain had a team to demonstrate that they could come up with on a 6-inch by 6-inch plastic coupon to demonstrate that they had a microbiological coating. Actually, it wasn't a coating, it was just they grew these microbes on that coating that were natural and prevented barnacles from attaching. It was so successful that DARPA picked up the program, and now they're doing it through DARPA. Yes, question?
Yeah, I actually did research on that too before. Like I studied the microbial of shark skin
Yes.
for biofouling abilities.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of possible opportunities. So the comment was about, what was your name?
My name's Chara.
Chara has done some studies with microbiology, looking at how shark skins can also impact or prevent biofouling from barnacles attaching, for example. There's a lot of cool stuff going out there. But it was kind of cool for me to see that these international researchers teamed up and came up with something really interesting that is still being funded now by DARPA. That was a success. As part of my job, I interacted with NATO, the Science and Technology Organization. So this is a meeting we had that was in Denmark and Copenhagen, the last one I attended. It was great to interact with leaders in the science and technology through all the NATO countries. We also had a chance, this is what's called the London Tech Bridge. This is when they opened it up in downtown London. And it's a way for the Royal Navy and the US Navy to collaborate on projects. So I was involved also with helping to establish that entity then too while I was there. And of course, we had a chance to visit one of our offices in Tokyo. I went to as many as I could around the world where we have science directors doing that cool work. So this was a great experience. And from London, when that assignment ended, I left the government and came here to Orlando, picked Orlando to start a company because I felt like this was like an aerospace hub, something that was, they had the Space Coast nearby, and I was introduced to what is here. I've been to Orlando before, but not from a technical side. But one of the UCF professors here in the department kind of helped us run a workshop for the Navy S&T leaders throughout Latin America and the US. We held it here in 2023, and he showed all the cool stuff that's going on at UCF and the kind of the business incubation program that UCF has and all the opportunities in the aerospace industry. So we picked to come here and try it out to start a company. That's what Avante Aero is, by the way, the other logo. So I have my own company. I haven't gotten any funding yet, but this is a proposal that we submitted to DARPA as part of the SBIR program. It didn't end up getting selected, but the idea was to use, these are dielectric barrier discharge plasma actuators. You see the purple would be where you would have flow tangential along the surface of the airfoil and in the wing, and the idea was to mount it, do the development of those actuators in a wind tunnel here at UCF. I was teamed with Dr. Bhattacharya here in our department, and we had a great idea, I thought. It was close, but we were not selected. That Cessna is actually a 35% scale model that Wayfarer Aircraft has that they're willing to team with us on. So we could mount it on that subscale model and try it out to show that it would be beneficial in reducing the drag from turbulence. That was what we were hoping to do. So this was something, and we were going to work with Embry-Riddle in developing the full scale of the hardware we needed for that testing on the wing. So we would actually test the wing for that subscale model in the tunnel there. So it's a cool idea, something that we really wanted to try to explore. Still something we want to try to do if we can find funding for it. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, I'm going to kind of transition to this DoD Smart Fellowship, Scholarship. Anybody heard of this before or maybe applied? Okay, so some of you have, which is great. The idea is that the Department of Defense has many research laboratories. You can see all across the United States. All the services have them. And the idea would be to use this scholarship to help find the excellent students that are interested in working in the government as civilians to support the DoD laboratories, the DoD mission. And they would pay for school up to 5 years, undergrad and graduate school. And the idea is that you would get a stipend if you were awarded that. They would pay your tuition, but you'd also get a stipend to live. And in the summertime, you would work at the organization who was interested in hiring you. So there would be a team up between you and the selected lab that you wanted to go work at. You would put several possible applications, or select several possible laboratories, and they would decide who they wanted to hire, and they would start working with you in the summertime. So you'd have a summer job, and you'd have opportunities as you got closer to graduation to join them as a civilian in their organization. So it's been going for many years. It's very successful. And some of the graduates from this program I've met and interacted with, very good people, and great opportunities to pursue really interesting work. That's something that we all need as far as what our military needs. So anyway, this is something that I wanted you to be aware of. You have to be a citizen of the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, or United Kingdom to apply for this particular scholarship. And I think with that, that is my presentation. So hopefully, if you have any questions about anything? Yes, Ethan.
What was the favorite?
Do you want to use the mic? My mic?
What was your favorite research project, whether it was something you worked on or something you like developed or got to have being a research project in general?
As a
Anything?
researcher?
Anything, even or like
As a manager or a researcher? Okay, so the ones I show are the ones I loved as a manager. For me, one of the most interesting that I didn't show, when I was at Penn State, we had we put in a proposal for an ARPA-E proposal working with the company to develop a cross-flow turbine that would be able to maneuver itself, so it would both produce power and move under its own power to a different location. And that actually made it to a prototype, and it was something that was successful. So I really enjoyed that. Some of the work that, like I shared already with the FAA, that's pretty cool stuff too. I would say those are the ones that I showed. Yes.
So as someone who has worked with the Air Force Research Lab, what is your experience with like the kinds of engines that they work with, maybe specifically rotating detonation engines?
Yeah, so the question was, since I worked at AFRL, what are some of the interesting engines that they have, or architectures they use? So I'll say that since I have been out of the Air Force for a while, not necessarily, it's been several years since I've interacted with them, but I do know that the AFRL does do rotating detonation engines. They've done the research for decades on that, and now it's starting to see fruition from that. Any of the gas turbine engines, a lot of the research that's been done on the film cooling flows was done originally and paid for from the basic research all the way up through very applied. There's programs that are, I'll say, multi-service programs that developing technologies that we're applying for all the, like the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, NASA as well, Department of Energy for all these kinds of technologies that were important for these engines to develop and make them more efficient were done through the propulsion lab at the time, or now Aerospace Systems Directorate at AFRL. Hopefully that answers your question. Yes.
So you talked about the Department of Defense Smart Scholarship. You said that you work in the lab like towards their goal. Is I'm guessing each lab has like a separate goal in mind trying to research something, or some of the like goals off the top of your head?
Yeah, so the question was, for the DoD Smart Scholarship, each of the labs may have a different focus, right, on what they're interested in. Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, there could be different areas of interest. There are many similarities in some of the labs, but you're right, there are some specific areas and specific technical disciplines that are more interesting to them. Army Corps of Engineers, and there's some laboratories in Mississippi that, for example, are more focused on like the civil engineering kinds of aspects that would be of interest to them. So they'll look for graduates in those programs to bring them on and get them familiar with their projects. Again, they're research projects, sometimes a bit more applied and others more basic. There's other things, if you look out here in Southern California, Edwards Air Force Base and China Lake Naval Base, they have wide expanses of test ranges, and they do all kinds of weapons testing out there, similar in the sense that they're missiles, for example, or aircraft testing. And so there's a lot of emphasis in those areas. And you might think that they are not very popular because they're out in the middle of the desert, but in fact, those who work there love it because it's a great way to be out and you're not in a crowded city. And if you like the outdoors, hiking, hunting, that kind of thing, biking, that's right there. So a lot of people do like that part of the area. So really, when you're looking at those DoD SMART scholarships, there's two things happening. You're applying to be accepted in that program for the funding and the opportunity to work with the lab, and you may identify some laboratories that you may have interest in doing, but the lab is also looking to see if you're a right fit for them. And they're actually going to be giving you an agreement to get the scholarship. You have to have an agreement that you'll work for them for so many years in payback. Yeah. So it's a great way to get to know them and to have that experience. There was another question over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask, how do you know that it was the right time to start your own company?
Yeah, good. So the question was, how did I know it was the right time to start my company? So I've had this idea for many years. Over the time, both managing projects and doing research, you come up with ideas, something that I've kind of noted ever since I was actually an undergrad. Sometimes you have classes that get you thinking and you have these ideas you want to maybe pursue and just didn't have the opportunity. And, there's timing is everything. And it was kind of like, yes, I was working in the government, in the federal government. There were a few jobs I was interested in getting as a government employee. I couldn't stay in London, but it was a temporary job. So I looked at those jobs I was interested in, but none of them panned out. And so at that point, I was like, all right, my youngest daughter is going to college. We could live where we want, we feel like it's best. The timing worked out, felt like it was the right time. Nothing has come out of that yet, but it's something that I'm still very interested in. And then this opportunity to teach here at UCF came up. And that's been great. I mean, I love interacting with you as students, having a chance to teach again. It's exciting for me. I also found that, being on my own, I'm the only sole employee of my company, right? And my office is in my house. It gets pretty quiet. I need interaction. There were times where I was like, I had to talk to myself just to feel like, like something was happening. I would try to schedule meetings and go places, but sometimes you just gotta sit at home. So for me, this opportunity also to come work at UCF was really beneficial for me. It energized me. And so even though I'm teaching here, I'm also thinking about opportunities that I might also apply for still continue to apply for, put in proposals and try to get funding and work with UCF professors or others too. I'm still hoping that will happen. Good question. Yes.
So having taught at a few universities and interacted with professors from all around the globe, are there any differences that you find here at UCF about the school or the programs or anything along those lines?
You mean that UCF is best? Is that what you want me to say?
You can totally say that like Penn State had an amazing program.
Yes.
I don't know if you
So here's some things I did realize. So the question really is, what are the things I've seen working with international researchers and the universities, teaching and being in universities here in the U.S. One thing that I was really impressed with when I was interacting overseas was how a small university and a professor, researcher in a small country can have a really cool idea that these really good ideas are not just our ideas, they're all over the world. And teaming with them is the best thing ever to do to spur on new innovation. That was the thing I really enjoyed and I saw. That was probably the best thing, the most inspirational thing for me was to see how anyone could have a great idea and that they're really good ideas and that they want to work with us in the US. They want to have that interaction. They want to collaborate, and we want to collaborate with them too. So that was one of the first things. The other thing I'll say is each university had its kind of like its own character, its own strengths, I'll say. I mean, I was teaching engineering. Obviously, the Air Force Academy had the cadets who are going to be Air Force officers. They're trained to be officers, and this education came along with it. But their focus was in leadership and preparing to be, serving in their country in the military, in the Air Force typically. So that's a different focus. Penn State, man, it was awesome going to a Penn State football game, eating Penn State ice cream, being there and seeing just the massive spirit that's there. I mean, we still love watching Penn State football. It's great to see them and be successful. And being in that stadium on a whiteout, there's nothing like it ever. I mean, it's nice to be here too, but it's just a whole different feeling. I will say here at UCF, I've been impressed with the caliber of students and how much this university is growing, especially in the engineering department. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join. I think that we're just now starting to see the potential that we're going to really be. UCF is on the upward trend. It's going places. So I like to see that. And I would love to see collaboration overseas and also with other universities where we can. There's just great opportunity and great ideas, great research is going on. And I like interacting with the students too. All the universities I've been at, seeing the students and interacting with senior design or the other courses, it energizes me, and there's some great ideas that you guys have. It's really nice to see that, and I hope that you'll pursue those. Good question. Any other questions? All right, well, I'll be around if you have questions later, so thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rhett.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wrap it up or what?
We might actually. I think we are having a lot of people leave, so we might skip the project updates today unless you guys really, really want to do them. It was awesome. I looked at it. Yeah. But you could
Go to
throw
the.
up the merch slides, the new merch.
But before you leave, just give us 1 second.
Yeah, we do have one announcement that we want you guys to see before all of you guys head out. So
Just keep going.
just keep clicking.
Those are all our wonderful projects, just letting you know. There's PDR. See, PDR.
It happened.
Oh, there's prototype for DBF.
Yes. Yeah, next one. But we have new merch. So we have both colors of the shirts and the sweatshirts. They're up for pre-orders right now. So if you guys want a shirt or a sweatshirt,